Our next topic is one that is near and dear to my heart, and that is that they are continuing to improve the migration process from QuickBooks Desktop to QuickBooks Online. Now, I just taught a class on converting from desktop to online just a couple days ago, and you can find that class at royalwise.com. And I actually have a book about it as well. So it looks like I'm going to have to go in and edit my book. But they have made some changes to streamline the process. The first one is that if your client currently uses QuickBooks Online Payroll already, and you're ready to move their file from desktop to online, now you can still import their accounting data, and it does not affect their existing payroll data. So it streamlines the payroll part of the process. The next innovation is that formerly your desktop file had to have less than 750,000 targets, and you would find that under the F2 key. Now they have lifted that. You can migrate up to 1.2 million line items. That's 16 times the former limitation. So if you have somebody who has a really large file, up until recently, you've had to condense the file and just bring in a couple years. Now you can bring in most cases, their entire desktop file. Another innovation that they've made to help is that there's now a pre-migration checklist so that when you are beginning to do the migration, you can actually look at a list of tasks, and it tells you some of the things that you can do in your desktop file to make sure that it's ready for the migration. So it reminds you to double check your list of active customers and inactivate ones that you're not using. It also does the same thing for vendors, so that if you have vendors you're not using, you should mark them as inactive before you move to online. Same thing with your chart of accounts. If you have charts of accounts that you haven't been using, you should inactivate those. And one of the really important ones is unbilled charges. This is one of the ones that we've actually had to do cleanups around, that in QuickBooks Desktop, there's a check mark for whether an expense is billable to the customer or not. And a lot of people just check it off by default. And once they've dismissed the warning boxes that say, hey, are you sure you want to do this? And that doesn't come up anymore. I've had clients, when I migrate them from desktop to online, who had like $15 million in unbilled transactions. And either you had to use a URL, which is not on the menu, to clear them, or you had to make an invoice for every single client and then import all of those billable expenses, save it, and then void it. So now they're actually alerting you, hey, you might want to look into this beforehand. So those are just a couple of the new features on the checklist. So they give you now a 13-step process that you can use to make sure that you've prepped the file well. And the last of the migration improvements is that they now have a quote unquote AI-based migration duration estimate, which basically means that when you press the button and you begin your migration, instead of just waiting blindly for the email and waiting for it to come in, now they're going to give you a better sense of where they are in the process. And so there's going to be a time estimate to let you know how long the migration might take. So I'm looking forward to those new features.